My family disowned me for divorcing my wife. Now they're begging me to come back. I know this is long, but I need to get this off my chest, because for 2 years I thought I was the villain in my own family. Turns out I was just the only one who wasn't lying. My name's Daniel. I'm 34, and 3 years ago my entire family, my mom, my dad, my younger sister, stopped speaking to me because I divorced my wife. Not because I cheated, not because I hit her. Not because I did anything at all, really, except finally stop pretending everything was fine. Last month, my mother showed up at my apartment, sobbing in the hallway, begging me to come to Thanksgiving. I want to tell you how we got from one to the other. Because it took me a long time to understand that the family who abandoned me wasn't cruel, they were just fooled. Beautifully, completely fooled. And the person who fooled them is the reason this story has an ending I actually feel good about. I met Emily when I was 29. She was warm, funny, the kind of woman who remembered your coworker's kid's name after meeting them once. My mom fell in love with her before I did, I think. Linda, that's my mom, used to call her the daughter I always wanted. My dad, Tom, who's about as expressive as a brick wall, actually hugged Emily at our engagement dinner. He doesn't hug people. He shook my hand. My sister Rachel, 2 years younger than me, became genuinely close with Emily. They texted without me, went to brunch without me. I used to joke that I married into a package deal. For the first year, honestly, it was good, or good enough that I didn't ask questions I should have been asking. The shift started small. Emily had a coworker, Chad, from her marketing job. At first, he was just a name that came up. Chad said this, Chad thinks that. Then he became a presence. Late nights finishing a project. A work trip that got extended by 2 days with about 4 hours' notice. I'd bring it up gently, and somehow within 10 minutes I'd be the one apologizing. That was Emily's gift, honestly. She could take any concern I raised and hand it back to me as a character flaw. I was insecure, I was controlling. I didn't trust her, and didn't I know how that made her feel after everything she'd sacrificed to be with me? I started to feel like I was going insane in my own house. Have you ever had a conversation where you walked in with a completely reasonable question and walked out convinced you were the problem? That was every conversation for about 1.5 years. I tried to talk to my mom about it once, just once. I said something like, I don't know, things feel off with Emily and my mom actually laughed. Not meanly, she thought I was being dramatic. Daniel, that girl adores you. You're lucky, don't mess this up. So I stopped talking. To anyone, here's the part where I stop being vague because you deserve the actual moment, not the summary. It was a Tuesday. Emily was at yoga. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower, and it was connected to our shared iPad through some setting neither of us had ever turned off. A text preview popped up on the screen sitting right there on the counter. It was from Chad. It said, and I'm going to clean up the language a little, can't stop thinking about last night. Tell D you have another late one Thursday. I didn't confront her that day. I know that's not the dramatic Reddit move, but I needed to actually know what I was dealing with before I said anything, because I already knew from experience that if I came in hot and wrong, she'd spin it. So for the next 9 days, I quietly built a file. Credit card charges for a hotel 40 minutes away, a Marriott if you're curious. Real classy, on days she told me she was at her sister's. Messages that synced to that iPad because she'd forgotten it was ever linked. A joint savings account, the one we were supposedly putting toward a house down payment, that had about $6,200 less in it than it should have, moved out in 3 transfers over 4 months. 9 days. Then I sat her down, put the folder on the table, and said I wanted a divorce. She didn't cry, that's the part that still gets me. She didn't cry, she didn't apologize. She went completely cold and said, You're going to regret blowing up our whole life over this. I didn't understand what she meant by that sentence until about 3 weeks later. I filed, it was quiet, or I thought it was quiet. I didn't badmouth her to anyone, I didn't post about it. I told my parents the marriage was ending and that I didn't want to get into details, because some small, stupid, decent part of me still didn't want to humiliate her. That was my first mistake. Silence is not neutral. Silence just means someone else gets to fill in the story first, and Emily filled it in fast. Within a week, my mother called me not to check on me, but to tell me she was so disappointed. Emily had called her, crying apparently. Told her I'd been cold and distant for over a year, that I'd started accusing her of things out of nowhere, that I'd blindsided her with divorce papers with zero warning, and that she suspected, she hated to even say it, that there might be someone else on my end. I want you to sit with that for a second. She didn't just lie. She took the exact shape of what she'd done to me and pressed it onto my face like a mask. My mom believed every word. My dad, who takes his cues from my mom on basically everything, believed it too. My sister Rachel, the one who'd built a whole friendship with Emily, believed it hardest of all. She called me and said, and I'm quoting this because I will never forget it, "I don't even know who you are anymore," at Thanksgiving that year, 6 weeks after the divorce was filed. I wasn't invited. Nobody called to explain, I just wasn't on the group text anymore. I found out through my Aunt Diane, my mom's younger sister, who quietly texted me a photo from the table with a message that just said, "Wish you were here," and nothing else. Diane was the only person in my family who ever at any point asked me my side. Everyone else had already reached a verdict. For the next 2 years, that was my family, a closed door. My mother posted photos with Emily on Facebook. They went to a spa day together, 8 months after my divorce was finalized. My own mother and my ex-wife, getting manicures, captioned, "Grateful for strong women." I saw that post at 11 p.m. on a random Wednesday, and I sat on my kitchen floor for a while. Not proud of that, but I think you understand. I'm not going to pretend those 2 years were just suffering, because that's not honest either, and honesty is kind of the whole point of this story. My best friend Marcus let me crash in his spare room for 4 months when I couldn't stand being in the apartment Emily and I had shared. He never once told me I was better off. He just made coffee and let me talk or not talk, whichever I needed that day. I got a new job with better pay. I started running, badly at first, then less badly. I dated a little, cautiously. I went entire months without checking Emily's Instagram, and then relapsed and checked it 4 times in one night, and that's just how healing actually goes. Not the straight line people pretend it is. My Aunt Diane stayed in contact the whole time. Quiet, steady, no drama, every couple months a text. "Thinking of you? How's the new job?" She never trashed my mom or picked sides out loud, but she also never once suggested I was in the wrong. I didn't know it yet, but Diane was about to become the most important person in this entire story. About 2 years and 2 months after the divorce finalized, Emily and Chad broke up. I only know the details because Diane told me, and Diane only knew because she'd stayed loosely in touch with Emily too. My mom's whole side of the family had basically adopted her. Apparently Chad had been cheating on Emily, which, sure, poetic, and it got messy. Public messy. The kind of breakup where mutual friends start hearing things, and here's the twist. Here's the part where the story flips all the way over. Chad, it turns out, was furious, not just about the breakup, but because during their entire relationship, Emily had bragged to him repeatedly about how she'd handled the divorce from me. Not just handled it, she'd told him in detail more than once how she'd called my mother crying and flipped the entire story before I even had a chance to say a word. She thought it was funny. She used to tell it like a war story. I had his whole family eating out of my hand before he even opened his mouth. Chad had screenshots. Not of the divorce lies specifically, but of a conversation where Emily, months into their relationship, laughingly recapped the whole thing to him over text. The poor Emily performance to my mother, the crying on cue, even a line where she wrote. And I am going to read this to you close to word for word because it still makes my stomach turn. His family was easy. People always believe the person who cries first. Chad, angry and vindictive after their breakup, didn't send that screenshot to me. He sent it to my mother, directly, with a message that said something like, "Thought you should know what actually happened." I did not see that coming, and neither did my mom. My mother called me on a Tuesday night. I almost didn't pick up, old habit, 2 years of not picking up, but something made me answer. She was crying before she even said hello. Actually crying, not performing it. She said, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to know how sorry I am, and I understand if that's not enough." She read me the screenshot, word for word. I sat there in my kitchen, the same kitchen, floor, different apartment, and listened to my own mother read me the sentence that explained 2 years of my life. She told me she'd confronted Emily on the phone that same day. Emily, apparently, didn't even bother denying it much. Just said something like, "It was a long time ago, why does it matter now?" Which is maybe the most honest thing she said in this entire story. Because it tells you exactly how little any of it ever mattered to her beyond winning. My mom told my dad told Rachel. And within about a week, I had 4 missed calls from my sister, 2 voicemails from my dad, who does not leave voicemails, and my mother showing up, unannounced, at my apartment building. Buzzing my unit from the lobby at 7 p.m. on a Thursday. I let her up. I want to be honest with you. Some small, tired part of me wanted to. I'd spent 2 years missing my family more than I ever let myself admit. She sat on my couch, and she apologized for probably 20 minutes straight. She said she should have asked me directly instead of taking Emily's word. She said she'd been a coward, choosing the easy, comfortable story over the harder work of actually checking. She said Rachel felt sick about it. She said my dad, who never talks about his feelings, had apparently not been able to sleep properly for a week. And then she asked if I'd come to Thanksgiving, all of us. Like the last 2 years could just be a chapter we skip past. Here's where I imagine some of you want me to say I forgave everyone on the spot. Big hug, roll credits. That's not what happened, and I don't think it's what should happen, honestly. I told my mom I appreciated the apology. I meant that. I do believe it was real. But I told her something else too, and I want to say it here the same way I said it to her, because I think it's the actual point of this whole story. You didn't just believe a lie. You believed it easily, and you believed it about your own son, and you didn't check for 2 years. I'm not the one who needs to prove myself was ever telling the truth. I already was. I told her I wasn't interested in going back to how things were. Not out of spite. I'm not trying to punish anyone forever, but because trust isn't a reset button. It's something you rebuild slowly, if at all, and only if the person on the other side actually understands what broke it. I told her I was open to a relationship with her, with my dad, with Rachel, eventually on different terms. Slower, honest, no more group chats I get quietly removed from. No more verdicts handed down without a trial, but Thanksgiving all of us like nothing happened. No, she cried more. She said she understood, even though I could tell some part of her was hoping I'd say yes right there. She left around 8:30. We've talked twice since then, actual real conversations, no ambush, no guilt trip. It's slow. It's supposed to be slow. As for Emily, I haven't spoken to her and I don't plan to. What would there even be to say? Update. 3 months later, a few people asked me to update this, so here it is. My dad and I got coffee last month, just the 2 of us, which has genuinely never happened before in my entire life. He's not a big talker, but he told me in his own clipped way that he was proud of how I'd handled everything, and that he was sorry it took him this long to say so. That's about as emotionally fluent as my father gets, and honestly, from him, it hit harder than my mom's 20-minute speech. Rachel and I are talking again, mostly texting, working our way back to normal. She sent me a photo a few weeks ago from a hiking trip with the caption, "Wish you were here." The same words Aunt Diane used to send me 2 years ago, and I think she meant it as a small apology. In her own way. I appreciated it. My mom and I are having dinner, just the 2 of us, next week. Small steps. No Thanksgiving invite yet, and honestly, I'm not in a rush. Diane, by the way, gets full credit in my book for being the one person who never needed a screenshot to believe me in the first place. I took her to a nice dinner to thank her. She just shrugged and said, "You're my nephew, I know you." Should have been that simple for everyone else too. And Emily, last I heard through the grapevine, she's telling people the divorce brought out the worst in everyone, and that she's just focused on healing. Some people never stop performing, even for an audience of nobody. I don't know if my family will ever be what it was before all this. Maybe it shouldn't be. But for the first time in 2 years, I'm not walking around waiting for someone to believe me. I already know what happened. Now, finally, so do they.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want more fascinating Reddit tales, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to Archives of Reddit. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.